Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Chris Frostad. He's the president and CEO of Purepoint Uranium. And we talked to him about how things have progressed in the marketplace. They've almost trebled their share price since we last spoke at the beginning of November. Is that down to him or factors that he has control? And how are they going to move this forward, having raised $7 million? What are they going to do with it? How are they going to spend it? And where's the value come from? If you want our thoughts and opinions on that conversation, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also find detailed company reports and analysis. There's training courses on there to help you with your due diligence process, commentaries from experts from around the world, including our weekly uranium show. Stay ahead of the crowd, guys, and listen to that one. And if you want to join a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, friendly and safe environment, free from judgment, trolling and abuse, you can join them. In fact, join everyone at cruxinvestor.com/club. We'd also like your feedback, so give us a like, it'd be appreciated. Leave your thoughts below. We'll get back to everyone. If you want to see precisely what we talked today about, take a look in the description below. Chris, how are you, sir?
Very good, thank you, man.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you came back. I really enjoyed our last chat. We kind of talked a little bit of macro at the beginning of the conversation, just trying to understand the world as it was. And you've been busy since we last spoke.
Well, yeah, I think it's all been busy out there in the last little while. I mean, there's been, the valuations have gone up, and not just bumped up. It looks like over the last 5-6 months, we've seen a real trend on all the uranium stocks. The market seems to be preparing itself for something, and a lot of money's been coming back into the sector. So, to the extent that people are leery of calling it in terms of when we're going to start seeing contracts written, I think certainly the market is signaling that it sees something coming in the near term, and we've been busy getting ourselves ready for that.
It's interesting to me because, in fact, before I get into it, because I think we'll have a good conversation in a sec, give us that 1 minute overview for people new to the story, and I'll pick it up from there.
Sure. Well, Purepoint Uranium is a uranium exploration company. We've been operating in northern Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin for over 15 years now, actually. The Athabasca Basin is known for its freakishly high-grade uranium, and where pretty much all of Canada's uranium production comes out of right now. We've been focused for the last little while on a project we joint venture with Cameco and Orano, which is called Hook Lake. It's adjacent to and on trend with a couple of the biggest finds of the century, I guess, over on the west side of the basin. But we have another dozen projects that we've really been maintaining and watching carefully and progressing slowly over the last bunch of years as the market's been as the price of uranium is low. And those are kind of the projects that we're going to start focusing on as well as we move forward to kind of broaden our exploration efforts.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate that update. What I noticed last time, you've been in hiding for about 10 years. You're going to, right? Fair to say. But it was deliberate, right? It was no accident.
Absolutely.
You kind of saw what was happening 2007 through to 11. No way of calling how quickly it would fall off. But you made the conscious decision not to do too much, not to go and raise capital, not to be too active and wait for the right time. Do you think you've timed it correctly?
Well, I believe what we've done to date has been correct. I'm hoping that we're started moving into this new focus at a correct point in time. We were around when uranium really came online, 2003, 2004. We held a lot of property back then, and we did a lot of work during those few years. And it really was a short period of time, relatively speaking, that a lot of exploration was going on up there. But as we saw the price of uranium topping $100 back then, before it started to come off, we certainly started to see the markets come off. And throughout all of 2007, we saw all of the uranium starting to really, ease off a lot. And at the end of 2008, of course, the banks all blew up, and everything kind of fell away. But we saw that coming, and we pulled in our horns and wanted to wait and see as to when and if things come back, because we're an exploration company, so we're really dependent on the interests of the market and where the interest is, and when and how we should be raising money and investing it. And I think in 2011 when things started to come back, and then the wave hit Japan. I don't even think a lot of people recognize that Japan wasn't the problem so much as Kazakhstan. That there was a lot of uranium coming into the market, and I think that's what the markets have been telling us up until that point as well. That there was excess inventory sitting out there, and Japan just kind of was the last straw. So, at a time when uranium is so low, when it's difficult to raise money, and when, quite frankly, the market punishes you for putting money in the ground on it from an exploration standpoint, even if you have good results, it just didn't seem, appropriate to be trying to raise and promote something in the bottom of a cycle. So we really have worked to maintain what we're doing. We've focused on the projects that are relevant and where we do see discovery and where we do have funding. And we made sure that we were hanging on to those other projects. And not just that, we've been looking at a lot of projects. We've actually staked and dropped a lot of property over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years because it just wasn't the right time to be putting money into it. And now, as we move into what I think is really that new phase, we are coming back. I think it's time for us to start working those projects.
I'm intrigued by the fact that you used the word punished. Do you mean it didn't credit you, didn't give you the value you would expect for each dollar spent in the ground?
Well, no. As a matter of fact, that's it. I mean, certainly the valuations came off greatly. But what we also saw is if you did go out and spend $1 million on a drill program, and you did come back with you didn't make a discovery, but you had very, very promising results, more than often you would see that the price go down because the market was using it as an exit opportunity because you'd created some volume. So it really wasn't a good time to be trying to create value that the market didn't want to see. Okay,
so let's talk about someone else you just mentioned, Kazakhstan. They were the problem back in in the early 2000s, etc.
Sure.
Putting a lot of product on the market. Since then, obviously, they've gone public. They are restrained in terms of what they do produce. So that hasn't been the problem of recent times. It's been a case of this mobile inventory and this kind of slightly opaque lack of mechanisms measuring what's out there.
Sure. Well, it's got to move through the system and through the cycle. And actually, I think you were talking to Paul Goranson last week, and it was an interesting dance you guys did, walking back in the timeline as to, when I'm putting rods in reactors, when you walk backwards, when does that turn into a long-term contract? And it kind of demonstrates that 1.5 to 2 year pipeline that has to kind of empty out, and where the gluts of inventory are is as you say, is somewhat non-transparent. When Japan turned off 10% of the world's nuclear fleet, Kazakhstan's production continued to rise for the years that followed that. It just never got any better. So I think that, yes, they were the problem, but how that problem washes itself through the system, we're all waiting to see.
And so to that, and in the same vein, we've seen a lot of companies, a handful, I should say, our companies raise money to go and buy up and maybe mop up some of these excess pounds in the market. Do you think in all instances that's the right move for them?
Well, I'm not sure that they're buying up enough to really move the needle necessarily. I mean, it's an interesting play. I don't want to say it's a promotional play because of the people that are doing it, right? I mean, when you look at a Denison buying inventory, I mean, they run and manage Uranium Participation Group. So they're in the business of trading. So if I'm an investor and I'm looking at what they're doing, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's not necessarily a bad investment for these guys. That's what they do. If I went out and bought a bunch of uranium and stuck it in a warehouse, you'd think I'm nuts because that's not what I do for a living. So it borders on questionable, but it depends on who's doing the buying and whether it's right off script in terms of what it is they're supposed to be doing as a business.
So you think there are some promotional elements to it?
For sure. I mean, again, it's not enough to move the needle, and so you're making, I'm putting my investors' money in a GIC for a while. somebody else is putting it in physical uranium, but that's fine. I mean, we all have our risks to manage.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. Some of the people doing it, I wouldn't have thought there's much.
I mean, the fact that Canada right now is, and North America, there's no uranium being produced in North America right now, and there was a point in time when over a third of the world's uranium was being produced in North America. I mean, you got to know that there is inventory being mopped up. So even some of the the uranium participations and some of the other physical holders of uranium, it's nice to see them buying now at this price, and it hopefully kind of heralds the fact that they think it's a good time to be buying. Whether that's actually affecting inventory in the long term and it's really going to hasten the revival of uranium prices is yet to be seen.
Right. So let's come back to this timing issue. Okay. Like I said, I sort of jokingly said you've been hiding, but consciously in avoiding spending money in the market unnecessarily. Your share price has almost trebled since we last spoke, midway through November. I'm intrigued as to how much of that you attribute to what's going on in the market and how much you've actually done. So when you talk about timing, the market is good. What have you done?
To warrant a tripling? I would say I'm brave enough to say nothing. I mean, we're looking at the market. And in fact, you can look at, the producers, the developers, they've all gone up 70, 80% over the last 5-6 months, all of them collectively. If you take yourself a basket of explorers, us included, we're all up 165, 170% in total. So I think it would be, for me to say that was my doing would be a little over the top, but I think that's what we're reacting to. We didn't cause it, but I think it's the responsibility is on us to understand what that is and to take advantage of it and make sure that we're using the opportunity correctly.
Well, you seem to have. You've raised $7 million over a couple of tranches there. So what are you going to do with it?
Well, I think it's now time, as I said before. We've got 12 other projects, and many of them have had a fair amount of work done on them, and they're as prospective as anything out there.
But $7 million is not a lot of money. Okay, you've got 12 projects. You've got a very large and significant partner on your Hook Lake project.
Right.
I'd love to hear what they're doing, and really, you've probably got three. The next tier down, but they're your three projects: Smart Lake, Red Willow, and Turnor Lake. Those are the ones you're going to focus on. Surely you're not going to spread yourself thin, are you?
Well, you'd be surprised. And the reason I would say that, I mean, we're in the exploration business, right? And I make no excuses about that. And it's our job to improve and increase the odds as best as possible to make a discovery. And you can drill your brains out in one key project, but if that's not where the hand of God came down and planted a hunk of uranium, you can drill all day long. So, we've got projects that cover a variety of theories. I mean, everybody's testing new theories. Everybody's looking for basement hosted deposits now, which they weren't 10 years ago. We're looking outside of the basement or basin, which we weren't 10 years ago. We've got other projects that take on different theories. And I think it's important that we test all of those things to the extent we can. What allows us to, when you say spread ourselves thin, is we can't just turn on a tap tomorrow and start spending money like mad people. Northern Saskatchewan is an excellent place to work and operate, but things are changing. I mean, the permitting process is now taking longer. You'll see a number of people who had projects and programs scheduled for this winter that never got going. And that was primarily permit issues and permitting, not in terms of I guess not setting yourself up properly. A lot of it has to do with the communities up there. So the engagement with communities, the engagement with First Nations has been evolving over the years. It's gotten a little more sophisticated, a little more formalized, and it's created a lengthening of the timelines it takes to actually put feet on the ground out there and start working. So, when we talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to work on all these projects, a lot of it is dependent on weather, it's dependent on permits, and it's dependent on resources. Because as you can imagine, now that all this money is flowing in, try and find a drill, try and find a geologist. things are getting busy again. So it takes time to get that machine going. And I think that's why we're starting now. We see that over the last 5 or 6 months, the market is clearly signaling a change. It's signaling that this is a time to get ready. And I think, as we work ourselves through this process over the next 6 to 18 months, we're going to be up to full speed by the time things get going. But the plan right now is to, during the summer months, it's a good time to do some airborne geophysics. So we've got a few projects that are early stage we need to do that on. We actually have permits in hand on 3 of our projects. So we'll be drilling them in the fall. We've got some ground geophysics that we can get done closer to the end of the year. So we can schedule this stuff all out properly and get it done properly. And it's not like we're just pulling a big lever and all the money's gone.
Right. So, you said earlier, right, we saw this coming, right? We had a view of the marketplace. We saw this coming. We hunkered down. Are you predicting, cycles? Because if I listen to a uranium bug or a gold bug or anyone who's like really into, if they're giving the bull case for something, it's to the moon and back, and it's a one-way ticket, right? Mm-hmm. Are you seeing yourself having to do as much as you can in this cycle because you think there will be a cycle, or do you think this is a straight line up as well?
I hope it's a straight line up. But after taking the careful approach we have for all these years, why would we bet the farm today, right? So the approach is it's a cautious one, but I think it takes full value or full. It takes the opportunity fully in that we can, we've taken the opportunity now that our stock price has tripled, like as you say, to raise some money now and enough money that actually, if we don't raise another dime, we can continue working for the next few years, but we don't plan to. We hope to be able to do things better and quicker than that.
Sure.
We can continue to react as the market grows.
Okay. That's what I've come to expect from the conversations with you. It's very pragmatic. So, of course, you can spend over the next few years because you can decide not to spend. You can just hunker down again. But I'm intrigued in what's going on up there and saying, right now, given what we've seen, we've almost trebled the share price here, market cap 30 million now. If in the next 6 to 12 months, I think seems to be, well, always is, I think it's almost an annual occurrence. This is the year, boys. And it happens.
This time for sure.
This time, I can bet my house on it this time again. You can sort of see the share price appreciating. You can see all of the boats floating. Mm-hmm. Even if they, as you said, don't do very much themselves to take advantage and keep raising more money. But truly, what's your expectation of where you fit into this cycle? You're a pragmatic guy.
Sure.
So that you must be thinking there must be a kind of bear case in your head as well, right?
Sure. I think right now, if you look at where we sit in the grand scheme of things, we're probably, if you take all the uranium explorers right now, we're probably in that bottom third, because we've been quiet about it. And I think what I see now is we've raised the money we need. We are all of a sudden unleashing a whole pipeline of projects that we can start working on and talking about in much more detail than we have been. And I think that alone should garner us a better position amongst our peers. So we've certainly got that going for us. If and as we expect to see that over the next 6 to 12 months, the price of uranium does continue to move up. We do see those contracts coming. Then we've got a head start on launching this into it. We're riding into it as opposed to trying to react a year from now when there's a flurry of activity and there's 300 new uranium explorers trying to get into the basin. For people who've watched the previous interview, they'll kind of understand your business model. But sure. Just for people new to this, can you just explain, you've got 12 assets. One, you've got a rather nice JV partner with, and we should talk about and see what they're doing at Hook Lake. But for the rest of the projects, are you going to be looking to raise capital and develop these projects, or are you looking for farm-in partners? I see. No. Now so the project we've been focused on significantly is Hook Lake. It is a project that we own 21% of. We have 2 partners in Cameco and Orano, and we are the operator. And so the simple math on that means that for every $1 million we go out and spend, I have to come up with $210,000, but I get a 10% management fee back. So I actually only have to come up with $110,000. That works very well for us, and has, because we've been making discoveries as long as our partners are focused on funding these projects, then the world knows, and it validates the fact that they are prospective, and that keeps things going. And over the last umpteen years, what it's allowed us to do is raise money carefully, only as we need it, at a premium, because we get the flow through tax advantage here in Canada. And all of our overheads have been covered by our operating fees off of this project. So it's been the little machine that allowed us to maintain, our be busy and work as we move along. We have another project that we joint venture with Cameco called Smart Lake, and it's one that we're looking to moving back into over the next year. We own 27% of that, and it's just to the west of Hook Lake. The rest of the projects, the other 10 projects, we own 100% of. And are we looking to take on partners for those? No, not necessarily. We believe that we can now start advancing them. Many of them have been advanced quite aggressively. Like, we've got a lot of money spent preparing these projects and doing some first pass drilling and literally locating uranium on them. So those are the projects that we will start investing in, our 100% owned projects, and advancing them forward over the coming year or two.
But I was sorry, as I understood it, I thought Hook Lake, I get that. What I'm trying to understand is that a cookie cutter model for you? Sounds like not. But I thought you've got first pass drill completed on 3 projects.
We do.
Right. The rest are just drill targets which have been defined, right?
That's true.
Right.
Now, I also understand Hook Lake and Smart Lake, we earned into those. Right. Yeah. So they didn't buy into one of our projects. We actually earned into their projects. And this was back, we started our relationship with them back in 2006, 2007. As a matter of fact, at the time, Roger LeMaitre from UEX, who you know well, was at Cameco, and he was the one we were dealing. He was the one I did the deal with, and they were projects that they couldn't free up budget to get into, and so that's how we sort of got involved with them. I saw them as important partners, no matter what they were selling off, and that's how we got into that relationship. So we earned in that 21 and 27%, and we've been the operator ever since on those projects. So our approach has not been to bring in partners and have them pay for our exploration.
Right, but the net result is the same. Whether they own it, you sitting as a junior partner is the bit that I'm interested in. I get someone to pay a majority of the costs, you operate.
Right.
Is that what you're looking to, or are you thinking, no, if we time this right, we can actually retain 100% control of this? We believe the market is going to allow us to raise cheaper capital to be able to move some of those projects along as and when at our option.
And that's always been our approach.
Right. Okay.
As a matter of fact, back in the original boom, when we picked up most of these properties, most of our peers were running around looking for partners to bring in exploration money, and we didn't. We were raising it in the markets because the market was handing us cheap money. And so to option off those projects economically didn't make sense, because the money the market was giving us was cheaper, to be honest. And I think we're moving into a cycle where that's going to continue to be the case for us, is to hang on to those projects 100% and work them ourselves.
Right. So let's come back to my earlier point about, have you created any of the value that the market has given you since November? You said no, right? Going forward, you're going to need to, given you've raised some money and it's all growth capital, and your job is to create value for shareholders. Talk to me about Hook Lake. What precisely are you going to be doing? Because if nothing's changed since we last spoke there, what's going to change going forward?
Well, Hook Lake, we've just wrapped up our drill program there. So the program started in January. We've just recently finishing up our demobilization out of that area. We drilled three holes in a northern area along the Patterson Trend. Really testing. It's a fairly large area. It's about 4 kilometers wide, and one that we hadn't put any drills into yet. So our partners and ourselves decided that we really needed to start doing some initial testing up there and see what we were dealing with. That program, like I said, just finished up. The assays are out yet. We haven't gotten them in yet, and we're just getting together that information to share with our partners over the coming weeks. We'll have a technical committee meeting in a few weeks and put our results out then.
Right. So we will get assay results into the market from how much drilling?
May.
How many meters in May?
It was not much more than about 1,500 meters.
Right.
Oh, no, what am I talking about? It's got to be more than that. It was about 2,400 meters.
Right. So it's not a whole bunch of meters. So what were you hoping to achieve with that?
Well, what we were hoping to see again is it was really driven off of two holes that we drilled in prior seasons that bounded this 4-kilometer area, and they both showed similar modeling as we had seen south in Arrow, in Triple R, in our own Spitfire projects. We're seeing that model and how it moves forward and how the deposition of mineralization is occurring. We saw it in those holes. We're starting to move in. It's quite a complicated area because there's numerous target conductors, and without getting too much into it, there's a whole band of targets in there that start to get complicated, and in essence what we're looking for is complicated areas. That's where it's the complexity of the geology that creates the opportunity for mineralization. So we're trying to move in from those. We're doing 400 and 800 meter step outs, which is quite a distance, because you could fit half a dozen arrows in there. But it was really to start to understand how the structure and the mineralization and that trend is moving forward. So it was really investigative at this point.
Right. Okay. So what's the best you could hope for when the results come back, and what's the best the market could hope for?
Is that we're chasing something. We're starting to see things chasing and getting tighter. Again, understand. I think we talked about this before. Our partners do pace us quite a bit in that regard. They're not in a rush. So, if they want to spend money understanding something before they spend the next whack of money. So they like to gather up information, make a decision on where they're going to go after that. I mean, our technical committee meetings are quite a gang. They herd into a room and talk about where they think we should be going next. So it's not just dragging out a half a dozen drills and poking holes in the ground.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Working with an Orano, working with a Cameco, they've got a different set of agendas from you. They've got multiple other projects, bigger projects. Mm-hmm. They're producing into a market, and they've got a different view of timeline. So that must be difficult as a CEO of a junior company needing to get good stories out there, try and enthuse the market about what you're doing.
Yeah, from a news perspective, sure, it's tough because we essentially over the last few years we drill in the winter and we talk about it for 8 months. That's kind of where it's been, and it is tough. But again, the fact that they continue to support the project at least validates that it's perspective. So we've got that playing off. Both companies have got specific exploration organizations that have been, I don't want to say decimated, but they've certainly been reduced significantly over the last few years. So it's not like they have exploration projects all over the world. They really don't. They've really minimized the amount of exploration they're doing, and they do focus on. So one of the things they are focusing on is Hook Lake, and they spend a lot of time just analyzing, thinking about it, reinterpreting results. I mean, they visited all of the other projects in the area. They know what they're looking at, and that's been very helpful to us.
So when people talk to me about joint ventures with the Oranos of this world, they always say that they're the favorite project. Everyone says it, right? Favorite child. And let's hope every child does feel like that. But how do we quantify that? How much money have they committed for next season, the season after that? I mean, how do they commit money to
haven't.
you?
They haven't committed a next season. So we will have spent $1.5 million this year, which is not as much as we spent in other years, but it's probably not too far off the average. It was what they determined as being the right number. Their budget cycles come around at the end of the summer, into the fall. So, I mean, they know when they come into the year, the calendar year, what they're going to spend all year. And, and we're usually done around this time of year. So we really won't get any more commitment out of them until the fall or and later in the fall.
Because they're obviously, but both of those, do they have their own assets nearby you, don't they? In the Patterson Corridor?
Cameco has a project to the north.
Right.
So, to the north of us, deeper into the basin. They've gone up and done some drilling up there. it does get very, very deep. I mean, even where we are, we're drilling significantly deeper than we were at the south end of our project. So the basin is getting deep. And especially now, as we're looking at basement hosted deposits, you've got to get through not just the overburden and, 300-400 meters of sand, then you're going another 50, 60 meters, 70 meters to get down to where you think the mineralization is. So it's tough drilling up there.
It is also following, okay, we've got Hook Lake, Smart Lake, Turnor Lake. There's a lot of lakes around there. Does water come into play here in the basin? I guess by definition, a basin has water in it. But we've seen, because you referenced permitting and some of the First Nations issues that some other companies are struggling with, and some of the technical solutions they're having to come up with to overcome this. I mean, does that affect the thinking of these big companies too?
Yeah, absolutely it does. I mean, you've got MacArthur Lake, you've got Cigar Lake, they're all lakes, and that's for a reason. I mean, Saskatchewan is, flat as all get out. And that's and that's just the geology of the area, or the geography, I guess. The reality is it is very wet. All of these lakes are very shallow. So there's lots of bogs, there's lots of streams, there's lots of water. And actually those depressions where the lakes are tend to be where the uranium, or where the complexities underneath the earth have kind of sunk things down. So it's not unlike to see that. And they've, Cameco and Orano have had to sort of reroute a few lakes and move some water around and spend a lot of time and money doing that kind of stuff. But when you look at something like, say, Fission, whose Patterson Lake is sitting in the middle of Patterson Lake, I mean, that is an issue where the cofferdam to even start digging there is going to cost you as much or more than the actual mining itself.
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, because there's obviously some of the best grades in the world. I mean, undoubtedly, no argument from anyone. But some of the cost of the technical solution is I guess, burdensome. Anyway, right, okay. So can we just talk about the three we've kind of done first pass drilling. So Smart Lake is an earning from you farmed into it. What's happening there?
We like that. Sure. Smart Lake, and if I had all my pictures in front of us, I could show you how this all works out. But Smart Lake was staked by Cameco quite some time ago, because underneath we can see how the geology joins up to Clough Lake and up to the Canada deposit, UX and Orano's projects to the north. And it was a priority project about 8 or 9 years ago. Before things started to light up at Patterson. We hit uranium there in our first drill hole, and we've only really had one drill program there, and then all the money and attention moved over to Patterson and over to Hook. We were out there with the Cameco geologists about a year and a half ago, relogging a lot of that core, and started to recognize it as what we now we're getting familiar with it at Patterson Lake. And that was the big aha, is that the depositions on the west are not the same as the depositions we're used to seeing on the east. So there is a difference there, and we now have a better understanding of that area. So we have there's some targets we want to hit to the north. We'll probably be looking to do some ground geophysics closer to the end of this year, and hopefully with Cameco's blessing, we will see. We want to get up there and do some more drilling early next year.
Okay, that's interesting. So basically, you've got Smart Lake and Hook Lake down in the sort of southwest side, and then the other project, Turnor, I've been struggling to pronounce that. Turnor Lake is up in the sort of northeast, along with most of the other assets that were the nearer term assets that you're talking about.
Right. So it is more along that trend. There is a mine trend that runs kind of southwest to northeast along the edge of the basin, where these two geological domains meet, and Turnor Lake and Red Willow both sit right in that trend. Turnor's interesting in that it's within a large structural area that hosts a number of things. Orano had a very high showing called the Alligator showing. La Roque is Cameco's showing. They had about 33%. there, and it all ties together. It's the same sort of corridor going on there. And then IsoEnergy, their hurricane zone lies along there as well. So that structure we're right on that structure. And as a matter of fact, the target we want to go and really start looking at is to the north. It's called Saren. It's right on that corridor, and there's about a 50 to 60 meter a thrust fault in the basement rock we've found, which is, the similar to MacArthur sits on these thrust faults where the rocks have kind of gone like this, and you've got a deposition there. So we've got a great target up there. We need to start poking holes in, among others. There's a lot of targets we've identified in that area, and we've done some early drilling on that one. And there is tons of uranium in the area. There's been a huge mineralization event, obviously, and it's just a matter of finding out where it lies in large quantity.
Okay, so what should people listening to this, watching this, be thinking about you in terms of your ability to time things? Okay,
sure.
What are they looking at?
I think what you're going to see out of us almost immediately now. We're just finalizing the financing that's underway right now. Is we will immediately be putting out a schedule of the exploration that we see happening over the next year and beyond. We will be doing, we have some earlier stage projects that are based on, some other not just theories, but other work that we've done prior. We'll be doing some airborne work over those in the summer right away, because that's work we can do immediately. We have 3 permits in hand for drilling. One is at Umfreville, which we haven't talked about. One is at Red Willow, and the other is at Henday. So because we have those, again, this is how the timing works. Those are the 3 we have permits on. Those are the 3 we're going to be drilling first while we apply for permits on the others.
Okay, so I think I said at the beginning you raised 7 million. So you definitely raised just under 2. You've announced 5 million, but it may end up being more. That seems to be de rigueur in the industry. Announce one number and raise more. Or do you think you're going to be happy with 5? Happy with 5. Okay. So when does that close?
That closes. Today is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow it closes. It closes. I mean, the book was full by noon the first day. It's crazy, and that's just the nature of what's going on now. So, that is all the money we can spend over the foreseeable future to do this stuff right. We have permits in hand, so we can get that drilling started. We've got airborne and ground geophysics we can get working on. All of that goes on, and if the markets continue to move in a way that they appear to want to move, we can continue moving forward in that way.
So why are you so confident about this model working? The way you're deciding to allocate your capital, the things that you're doing, because it's obviously, it's just pure play exploration at this point. Who should people look to? Well, what are there parallels? Are there peers? Or are you just doing it your own way?
Well, we're an exploration company. And we're not pretending to be a development company. We're not pretending to be going into production next year. We are in the treasure hunting business. That's what we do. Only it's a very precise scientific approach that we have to take. And again, you can't put all your money on Black 23. You have to test things. You have to look at different theories. All of these things that have been found in the last 10 years were based on new theories. Fission was looking outside of the basin. They were chasing boulders. Even Hathor was drilling seismic targets as opposed to the EM conductors that we all chase. So you have to continuously look for the new theories, the new things, because the easy stuff was all found, and it doesn't behoove the big companies to play that risk game, right? So as we raise money, our investors understand that's risk capital, and that's what we do. And the best thing we can do for our investors is maximize the odds that we will have the next discovery. And we can do that by chasing numerous theories, numerous projects at various stages of advancement, and make sure that we have that pipeline of projects that we can continuously prioritize and reprioritize. Every time we poke a hole in the ground, we reprioritize everything. Okay. If you've only got one project, you got nothing to prioritize.
Yeah, but likewise, we've interviewed companies which are just sitting on a bunch of moose pasture, which has never been anything. So, there's that. So you're saying that our top 4 projects, we know a lot about them. We're confident of those. We're now going to chase after these defined drill targets that we've got on the rest of them. and show the market that there's something there. That's
right.
Big part of this.
And we have that mix. We've got that pipeline. We've got that mix of projects. So yes, we will be, not only will we be putting out a schedule of here's all the work we're going to do, we're going to start reintroducing these projects to the market. We're going to talk about Turnor Lake and all the good stuff that goes on with it. We're going to talk about SMART. We're going to talk about Henday and all the reasons why that is the next place. Understand, we have worked our way through hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hectares of property over the last 15 years and gotten rid of everything that didn't make sense to us. We've only hung on to the stuff where we know that all the planets line up. So to the extent that we can now start talking very proactively about each of these projects and why they each have very unique value, we think the market will react well to that.
And at 30 million market cap, you've got a long way to go.
There you go. 35 tomorrow.
True. Chris, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for running through that. I'm glad things are moving along. I'm glad you're able to get the capital to do the things that you want to do. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on, okay?
Will do for sure. Thanks a lot, man.